All right. Without further ado, hello everyone. Welcome to the Q&A with Jasmine by the Bay. Yeah, I'm your host. My co-host will be here soon. She's just running a little late. And again, please welcome Jasmine here.
Hi everyone, I'm Jasmine. I'll just be working on something that I'll hopefully post soon. While we during this interview,
Glad to have you here.
of
From what I
course. Thanks for
see, your
having me.
artwork looks pretty amazing.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, let's start off with the first question here. What
Mhm.
made you interested in illustration?
Yeah, of course. So illustration has probably been an interest I've had for honestly a majority of my life. I've been drawing since for as long as I can remember, to be honest. Um, and but it was only in the past couple, maybe starting from around college, was when I really started taking it seriously and really making the effort to improve my work and go for a more professional standard for, or just set myself for a higher standard. So yeah, so I guess the only real answer I have is just honestly for as long as I can remember. I've always been interested in illustration. I've just always enjoyed the process, and it's something I've always enjoyed doing.
So, so how did you
All
get
right.
started?
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No good.
how did you get started? What got you into Sonic, and what got you into doing illustration and making merchandise?
Yeah, of course. So illustration, like I said, is something I've always enjoyed doing. Um, so that was always a foregone conclusion. For Sonic, the first time I ever played a Sonic game was maybe in third grade. So when I was around 8, some 17 years ago or so. For my birthday, my dad got me something called an R4 chip, which is basically a DS chip that can hold multiple games. And the chip that I was given happened to have the game Sonic Rush on it. So one day,
Hmm.
while scrolling through games that scrolling through games, I was kind of bored. I saw Sonic Rush. I never played Sonic before. I was like, I'm bored. Might as well try it. And that was my very first Sonic game. And that was what got me into Sonic in the first place. Um, and that was what eventually led me down the path of just like drawing Sonic a lot. Um, watched Sonic watched Sonic X after school on my laptop back when episodes of shows would be posted on YouTube in like multiple parts. Ultimately became my first introduction into like fan art and the online art community. Later on, uh, started getting into conventions, and then starting from around college when I was finally an adult, finally had my own money to be able to like manufacture things, make charms, and print things myself. That was when I decided to start making Sonic merch. Yeah, so that's like
Ooh,
a really brief history of like my involvement with Sonic and Sonic art.
And I
all
could say
right.
you make Kenny happy. It's like did somebody say Ninja Chat Dragon Toys on it to me?
Mhm.
Nice. All right. So my next question is: do you have any artist channels that you watch, or artists that give you inspiration? If so, who do you watch?
Yeah, so right off the top of my head, there is one artist in particular that I really, really like. If you're a part of the artist community, you've likely heard of her. Her name is Irie Pan, also known as Pixpun Online. She is a concept artist. I believe she currently works at Riot, but she's worked at a number of different studios, and game studios in the past, like Blizzard, and Netflix. She is one of my main inspirations right now. I really love the way that she paints things, and I always love seeing her art and just seeing like what she's doing, trying to understand like how she draws something and trying to integrate that into my own work. Another artist I really enjoy is Haruichi Furudate. For those who don't know, they are the author of the manga Haikyuu, which is my favorite manga of all time. Um, in particular, I really like the way that they draw expressions on their characters, and so I try to integrate that into my own work. I have like an entire photo on my desktop of like pages from Haikyuu that I reference to see like, oh, what kind of expression, how do they draw a certain expression, and how can I use that in my own work? In fact, if you look through some of my recent posts, you actually see a recent like little doodles page where I reference some hockey panels for Sonic characters. And I guess lastly, this is probably a name that more people here will probably recognize, is Evan Stanley. For those who don't
Ooh.
know her, she is one of the official Sonic artists. I believe she works as the lore writer for Sonic right now, and she's also previously worked with IDW. I've been following her since middle school, so I believe she herself was in high school at the time. So God, it's been probably been like 15 years since I started following her work, and so it's been a real pleasure like seeing her graduate out of being a Sonic fan artist to becoming a professional Sonic artist. Um, Her way of drawing Sonic is the way that I draw is how I basically learned to draw Sonic in recent years. There was this I took a brief hiatus from Sonic art sometime in high school to college, and then around when Sonic Frontiers came out was when I started getting back into drawing Sonic. And at the time, the first time I drew Sonic, and after a couple of years, I realized, oh, I still draw Sonic like I drew him back when I was 14. So Evan Stanley's work was the first work I checked to see like how can I improve my Sonic art because I cannot be drawing like I did when I was 14. So yeah, off the top of my head, those are three are the artists I have off the top of my head who I really admire. I of course have a lot of other artists that I enjoy. Another artist I really like is Yui Karasuno, who draws some of the Sonic Channel art. Um, who else do I really like off the top of my head? I guess there's just a lot of other individual artists. I can't think of them off the top of my head because I didn't prepare. I'm blanking right now. But yeah, those are some of the artists that I really like, whose work I follow, and whose work inspires my own work.
Nice. Okay.
So I know you talked about particular artists that have inspired you. Do you take any particular inspiration for your art style at all?
Could you elaborate on that? Like, just like what
Like,
am I taking from their work into my own work, or something like that?
I guess, was there any particular artist that you took inspiration for doing your particular style, or was it just
Yeah.
those same?
Yeah, so I guess like the artists I just named are all artists whose styles I have taken inspiration from. So I guess with Irie Pan, with the first person I named, I'm mostly looking at her painting style, seeing like how is she conveying like I guess not just painting style, but her composition. Her composition is probably like part of her my favorite part of her work, because like they're so dramatic, but they're so detailed. But um, you can tell like it feels like there's a story going on, and like even though there's so much going on, that she manages to finish them with a good amount of time. So I'm like trying to learn from like how is she drawing them, how is she drawing them fast, and what can I learn from how she uses light and composition to really tell her story. With Haruichi Furudate, I'm also taking inspiration from the way they draw their expressions and to draw my own expressions. Because Furudate, the way they draw expressions is very, very loud, I suppose. It's clear, like they're super animated, they're super bright and like express and like show so much energy. And so I try to integrate that into my own work. And lastly, Evan Stanley is just how I is like the way I draw Sonic is basically referencing her work. If I have trouble with like any a certain pose or something that doesn't work super well with like Sonic proportions, I will go through her gallery to see how does she approach certain certain poses that don't work super well with like Sonic characters.
Hmm. Okay. That's really interesting.
Hmm.
All right, let's see. Ooh. What is your favorite Sonic game? Have you played more than just the one that you mentioned
Yeah.
already?
Oh man. Okay, this is a tough one. I can't. So okay, so this is for me. This is a little bit difficult for me to answer in particular, because when I was a kid, the only console I had was a Nintendo DS, and there weren't many Sonic games to be released on the Nintendo DS to begin with. But the other thing was just that my parents didn't like it when I played video games because sometime in second grade, I did that thing that every kid does when they start playing under their sheets uh, until like 2 a.m., and they caught me once, so they stopped buying me games. So for a good number of years, I mostly played interact with Sonic by watching playthroughs online. So I didn't play games myself. Um, so if we're going strictly by games that I have played, um, honestly, I think Sonic Frontiers is currently my favorite. I just for I think mostly because of the inspiration that it really gave me. I think my favorite part about Sonic Frontiers is like how just off the walls and powerful the devs made Sonic. Like the parallels drawn with like the stars and space and how they gave him so much made him like they really the visuals they gave him to like really emphasize his power. I think were a really big reason, a really big inspiration for how I currently approach Sonic in my own work. So honestly, just for that, I think I'll probably give it to Sonic Frontiers for now. I do definitely want to go back and play some of the other games I never got to play when I was a kid. Sonic Unleashed being like the top priority right now. Currently, my computer is not the greatest, so I probably could not handle Sonic Unleashed, but someday I will get around to Sonic Unleashed and all the other Sonic games I missed when growing up.
And Kenny's like, go to choice.
All right.
Oh, but before we go to my next question, it looks like we have a question from the audience. From Stripebet. Come on
Let's
up.
bring them
Ask
up.
your question. Let's see if this works. Oh, there we go.
Yep, there to go.
Hello, what's your question? Oh, is your mic working?
Type it.
Try this type it. Try hold down Control and press R, and that refreshes Discord, and see if that works. Oh, well, while we're waiting on that, so my next question to you is, what is some of your favorite artwork and merchandise that you've done?
Sure thing. Actually, it might be good for me to switch screens to show this. Give me 1 second to just pull up my shop. Uh, and then let's see, change stream. Second. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I guess right off the top of my
Ooh.
head, this one is probably one of my most more elaborate pieces that I know a lot of people like and I really enjoyed designing, where it's essentially Shadow Doomwing Shadow where you can just hold down the wings
Ooh, this
and the
is
wings
cool.
and you can make the wings move. This was a recent I developed this in the past few months or so. Um And this one was a really fun to design, really fun to put together. And I know that a lot of people really like this particular this particular piece. Um, this is actually my second attempt at designing a winged the moving wing kind of design. I actually tried this first with a Rouge and Knuckles one, where Rouge is the one flying and Knuckles is on the bottom, holding onto a Master Emerald that she's trying to steal. Unfortunately, that one did not work out because it was having issues with balance that I cannot figure out how to resolve. Maybe someday I might try again with and try a different design that balances better. But for now, a very lucky like 30 people or so managed to get their hands on it, and before I discontinued it because it just wasn't working out. Let's see. Another piece that I know a lot of people really like is the Sonic and Big Fishing standee. This one's a little bit unique because on top of Big and Sonic having little fishies, the bottom is a shaker, so if you just move around, little fishies inside the pond will move around. And then when I first released it, it actually came out right around when Sonic X Shadow Generation was coming out. So as a pre-order exclusive, I actually made a little matching shadow piece with a little black Doom as the matching fish. And so the few lucky people who pre-ordered that design had managed to get their hands on Shadow. So this was a really cute one. I know a lot of people really like this one as well. Ironically, when I first designed it, I actually wasn't super happy with how it came out because I thought it looked a little boring. But I guess I was probably the only one who thought that. Everyone else really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it looked really
Oh,
good. It had to have been
It
difficult to
does.
actually make that.
thank you. And then for a personal piece that I personally like, probably this Nebula Supersonic Nebula art. So this
Ooh.
one is a personal favorite, mostly because this was something that came out better than I was expecting it to come out. I've never drawn like nebulosa before, and I wasn't totally sure like how to draw it. So I was really pleased that like after I drew it, they're like, oh yeah, it did come out super nicely. Um, this one is one of the pieces that I drew shortly after Sonic Frontiers came out, and like I mentioned earlier about like how I was super inspired by Sonic Frontiers and like their how they pulled like the space inspiration, the stars inspiration for Sonic and like the music and whatever. So this was part of the inspiration. This is like one of the pieces that came out of that kind of inspiration, just like making Sonic like sort of like a celestial body, like something that like really is radiates an unfathomable amount of power, but also like the way I interpret him, like just a guy who's like full of whimsy and like really full of joy. So that's like the inspiration behind this piece, and part of why I this is like a personal favorite piece of mine.
I can see.
Yeah,
And I just love the creativity behind it all too, especially the little moving parts. Like that's not something you see very often on a charm design.
yeah.
Right.
It's definitely like part of my philosophy when it comes to designing like our merchandise is like a always design. I'm designing something that I myself would like to see because like hey if I want it that means I already have an audience myself, and b I try to design things that like take full advantage of the medium that it does. So like with this design term for example, like this simply would not work as like a sticker or a print because a this is a double-sided design, so you need something that has both sides, and b it has moving parts, so it cannot be just a flat 2D item.
Huh.
Yeah, so I guess that's like a really brief goes through like some more recent pieces and pieces that I personally really like.
Hey, also, hi KJ and the audience. I hope you're doing well. So while we're waiting for Cipher to come back, would you like to read Kenny's question and the text, Chris?
Yeah. I was planning to. All right. Let's see. From Kenny, they said, "Hi, Jasmine. Nice to meet you. Hope your day is going well. For my question, what would you say it would be any advice you can give to future artists that make successful merchandise sales in the industry? That's all beautiful stuff. Which I
Yeah,
agree.
of course. So, okay, so I will give a very brief disclaimer that there are some things happening. If you're based in the US, there are some things happening that are a little bit outside of our control. Uh, in which case, my most immediate advice would just be to wait a little bit to see if things will settle. So, because right now it is a little bit expensive to make more complicated items like acrylic items and whatnot. However, paper items like stickers and prints are still good to go. So if you want to get started with making merchandise, definitely prints, posters, and stickers are the way to go when starting. And I will actually give that advice regardless of what, even if whatever's happening in the U.S. right now um, wasn't happening. It's just that stickers and prints are the easiest way to start because they are the cheapest. They have the highest profit margin. So if you wanted, so if you make posters and stickers, it's really easy to make back the cost of printing everything. So you won't be out like $100 for something on your first attempt at making merchandise. So from the financial standpoint, that is my most immediate advice. Second, I think this is advice that every merch artist will give you, especially those in fandom when making fan merch. But you want to make something that you yourself want. So it's just that there's like a few reasons for that. If it's something that you yourself want, that means you already know you have an audience for what you're making because hey, you're part of the audience. So there's that. Second is that if you're making something that you yourself want, something that you like, it will give you the motivation to actually make it something really good. It's something that you will really push yourself to make it into something good because you will have the willingness to make it a really how you'll be willing to like put in the effort and time to make it something that's actually really good and people can see when you really make an effort to make something good like uh, people can tell when oh there's something you made something just for the sake of making it versus something that you really were passionate about something that you really put a lot of effort and care into designing. And now from the more practical standpoint, um, something oh god, there's so many things I could talk about when it comes to like designing merchandise. I can write presentation on presentations and this kind of stuff. But I guess another piece of advice from the more practical standpoint is just test out things that you want to make. What I mean by that is that like if you make a charm, try printing it out first on normal paper just to see like how would your design look like roughly how will it look when printed on when it's like 2 inches big, printed on a piece of paper, and when you physically hold it. Like it's um one of the things that easiest mistakes that merch artists can do is just not testing that before they go straight into production, and so they end up with like charms or like multiples that are like the wrong sizes, maybe too big, maybe too small, and so and now you just have a bunch of stock that you have to get rid of because oh this is not how it's supposed to look. So just make sure to test things out, print things out. Don't be afraid to spend a few dollars to make a sample before going straight into production because you'll regret it far more if you blow $100 on printing a bunch of things versus spending an extra $10 to just test something out first. Um, yeah, and I guess one more thing is just that I obviously can't cover everything there is to know about merch making in a single session right now because this is not like a merch making panel. Is but right now it's actually easier than ever to find resources on how to be a merchandise artist because there's just so many artists who do this and so many of them who are willing to share their experiences, so many people willing to make videos about what they do. So if you're really serious about going into merch making and artist alley culture and whatnot, I would definitely recommend like just asking, finding those videos, looking up those resources and guides, and just seeing what other people have to say about making merch before you start yourself. Yeah. So I guess those are like a couple of points for bits of advice about like making merch and whatnot. I will not go on too much further because there's only so much time we have. But yeah, if you have more questions, you can totally ask me later about uh, this entire process and whatnot.
Yeah,
Alright.
all great words of advice. All right. So, Chris, would you like to ask your next question?
Uh, let me see. I gotta look back at some of the questions. Actually, I do remember one of them. Out of all of the Sonic characters, which one is your most favorite one?
This is the most basic answer I could possibly give, but genuinely, I just like Sonic the best. Part of it is just that,
Hello?
like, yeah, honestly, it's like, I just like his philosophy. I just like his design. He's cute. He's like,
If it
how
makes
to
you feel
describe
any
it?
better, I like all three of them.
Yeah, it's like, how to describe it? On the cute to cool scale, he encompasses the entire scale. Like, I don't who when the designers of Sonic first came up with him, like they came up with a perfect design. Like he is both cute and cool. That is peak design right there. But also just like especially as I got older, I just appreciated his philosophy and like his reviews a lot more, and just like being chill, just appreciating the world around you. Don't get too hung up on the past and whatnot. Uh yeah, honestly, it's just like I just I just really like Sonic. I just think he's cool. I just think he's cute, and I like his philosophy and his story, and like what you can do with him and what kind of situations you can put him through. Yeah, it's the most basic answer, but like is that is my honest answer.
So, my next question is: I know you're an artwork contributor for Sonic Expo. Can you tell us more about how you got about that journey and some examples you'd like to show us of some work that you've done for them?
Yeah, yeah,
You
of
got another
course.
question? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll start. I guess I'll start with Kevin's question. So, honestly, I was invited to be an artist for Sonic Expo simply because I just signed up for it. Sonic Expo put out a forum a couple months ago, I think, asking for volunteers, people who'd be willing to help out with art for Sonic Expo. And so I just filled out the form being like, hey, I can do this if you want me. And then one of the organizers actually contacted me a couple months ago, asking me like, "Hey, are you still interested in being part of the team?" And I just said yes. So I can't show you everything that we've worked on because it's still a bit of a surprise. However, I can show you a couple of things that have already been revealed. So give me a second to actually pull up the Twitter. So we have two different Sonic illustrations, and I drew one of them. The other one was drawn by one of our artists, Novini, who I've had the pleasure of working with these past few months. Give me 1 second to pull up screen share. Where is it? There it is. Yes. Okay. So our main art was drawn by the wonderful artist Novini, but what I have drawn is this Sonic right here is what I drew. It is based directly off of Novini's design because we chose that as the primary design for Sonic. And then the other one that we have so far that's been revealed is down here is these two, Supersonic and Super Shadow. Which we'll be using for our super sponsor badges and promo art. I am so those are the 3 pieces that I've completed so far. But I am working on a few more characters that will hopefully be revealed in a couple of months. I do have to finish some of them first though. But yeah, those are my contributions to Sonic Expo so far. You will see me at Sonic Expo, so hey, if you happen to have a pass, I would love to see if you happen to get any merch that happens to feature my work, I would love to see how it looks uh, at the event.
Yeah, well, congratulations on being chosen, and great job with the artwork so far. I
Mhm,
can't wait to see the other stuff that you put out.
of course. Thank you very
Agreed.
much.
Alrighty, Chris, I'll have you ask your next question.
But before we do that, we do have one hand raised. So
Oh,
let's
we did.
get them up.
Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan.
Hello.
there. It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
Hey, welcome back. So, what is your question for Jasmine?
So, my question is, I would have multiple, but what was from, so, what was your first ever project that you worked on? What
Uh,
was
s-
your first ever project that you worked on?
You said, did you ask favorite piece that you've worked on?
No, first, number one.
oh, the first piece I've worked on?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the first piece. Okay, he's asking what was the first piece you've ever worked on?
Good lord, that's hard to say.
You got too many of them, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
Take your time.
hmm,
Take your time. Take your time. It's okay. Take your
yeah.
time.
Uh, I don't think I can actually answer that question because I'm pretty sure the very first piece I've ever worked on, I probably made when I was like 3 years old. So it is
Mhm.
long gone, and I have no idea
And
what it was,
Yeah.
and I don't know
and your
where it is.
favorite. And your
And even
favorite.
like, yeah, and like even with my Sonic art, even that I can't
Mhm.
say for sure because that was probably when I probably drew that when I
And
was
your
like
favorite
10 or
one.
11.
And your
So
favorite one.
yeah, like long gone. Sorry, could you
And
say
your
what
favorite.
any favorites?
Uh,
Sorry, did you say any favorites?
yeah, I think that's what he said.
Yeah, okay. Um, let me think. So I did mention the Sonic Nebula piece that I talked about. The Sonic Nebula piece, that was like directly inspired by Sonic Frontiers. That was a personal favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what's my other's favorites from the past few years or so? Uh, I guess like I did recently complete. I did recently complete a piece. Let me see if I can pull it up. Um, it's like is on
Mm-hmm.
Sonic and Chaos Emeralds, and this one I really like simply because like this was a really difficult piece for me to finish because
Ooh.
the lighting scheme, and like the jewel art part is just like
Damn.
it's really difficult. Was really difficult to figure out. Very
Damn,
technically
Jasmine.
difficult. Thank you. But yeah, this was just a really technically difficult piece for me to figure out that, but I'm really pleased with how it came out. So I guess this is like a very recent like piece that I finished that I really like.
By the way,
Okay.
by the way,
Remember, one question at a time.
Yeah.
happy
So,
Passover. Happy Passover.
What?
Happy Passover.
Oh,
It's, it's almost Passover.
oh,
oh,
okay.
he said
Sorry,
happy Passover.
I couldn't hear you so well. Yeah, happy fast to you as well.
Alrighty, so thank you for that question, Jonathan. All right, question. Now you can ask your question.
All right. Let's see. Ooh. Uh, so here's an interesting question in regards to your artwork. Is there one Sonic character you haven't drawn but would like to draw?
Ooh, let me think. I honestly really like Espio's design, but I have not drawn him in a really in a. I only think I've ever drawn him once, and that was for like a really quick sketch. So I definitely want to draw him more. I really like the ninja aesthetic. There I do have an idea with that features him, Shadow, and Mephiles. That I definitely want to try out sometime. Kind of a neat, kind of an a unusual grouping. But I came up with the idea based off of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sega Hardlight. But they came out with some costumes for them that I think I can make into a really fun piece. So just off the top of my head, I think Espio would be really fun to draw, and I haven't drawn him like properly ever.
All right. Might I suggest, like, if you do draw Ezreal, draw him
Mhm.
in his ninja outfit that Sega
Yeah, of
revealed.
course. Yeah.
It would fit.
One thing I've been curious about is how do you make those moving parts for your merchandise, like say with the spinny tails and the doom wings? I'd love to know how you put that together.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, it's actually not too difficult. I guess like the manufacturer that I work with, they have a lot of small mechanical accessories that they can attach to charms and whatnot. So if you just look around to other merchandise artists, you'll probably find that some of them also have like little spinny parts and whatnot. That is pretty easy to put together. It's just a bearing. I'm sure you can find like couple of them. If I really want to, I could probably assemble them myself with some glue and some like parts bought off Amazon. The rest of it is just some chain that I cut and then attach together with some loops. Pretty common like jewelry making equipment. Yeah, honestly, like a lot of it isn't actually super complicated. A lot of the materials you can easily find in like on Amazon, and you could probably find people who frequent like maker spaces who use the same kind of materials. It really is just more about like, can you creatively, can you figure out a way to like make use of all this? Can you figure out like how to make use of the things you have, and can you use them in a way that's like intuitive and makes a piece like fun to play with and whatnot? So I guess like if you really want to generalize it, you could say that this is all considered toy making. Uh, if you want to generalize it,
Ooh,
bit of engineering, a bit of toy making, toy engineering, I guess.
okay. And speaking of the one with the shadowing, I had a question. How hard was it to actually draw the backside of that one charm?
Yeah. So that is something. How to describe it? It's definitely a skill that you have to practice. It's not my first time drawing a shadow a double-sided charm. I had designed charms in the past where it's like you can flip it and it's like exactly what you would find in on the back side of that design.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that the shadow one was actually easier than most other charms are, because I didn't design the backside was not like the back of shadow per se. It was more based off of the squid shadow design. I like, genuinely, it was just that I was too lazy to figure out the 3D space and, like, how Shadow will look like in the back, so I just scribbled on squid Shadow the squid design just to fill in the back and make it look interesting without actually having to figure out, like, what exactly he will look like in the back.
It actually fits, especially since you got Doom at the bottom hanging.
Yeah, yeah, um, but yeah, that part was generally just I'm too lazy to probably draw Shadow, I just figure something out that's easy to draw.
Okay. What's your next question, Kevin?
Yeah. So I know you booth at various Sonic cons. Are there any particular conventions you like to attend or vend at in the future?
Yeah. So I do have. I'm going to quite a few cons later this year. The ones most relevant to our audience here will probably be Sonic Neon and Sonic Expo Dallas. I am not doing Sonic Expo Atlanta this year simply because it's a little bit far and I'm not too sure like how the expenses would work out. But I do hope that if it proves to be a good event, that I will be able to do that event in the future. Um, I do have other West Coast cons that I would like to do. SoccerCon up in Seattle, KumoriCon in Portland. I would like to do some more major East Coast cons as well. Katsucon in Maryland, Otakon in I don't remember where I don't remember where that one is, and Anime Boston, obviously in Boston. I have some friends in Anime Boston at Boston who I would love to see. I've never been to Boston before. Unfortunately, this year Anime Boston happens to fall on the same weekend as Fanime, which I've already confirmed myself for. So not this year, but hopefully in a future year, I'll be at Boston as well. Just off the top of my head, those are just a couple events that I would like to do, and some events that I'll confirm to do. I will be at Anime Expo this year, so if you're going to Anime Expo or you're in LA, I will be there. Yeah, I guess that's off the top of my head. Those are some of the events that I would like to do, and some I am confirmed to do.
Yeah, Boston's nice. You'll enjoy it whenever you get
Mhm.
the opportunity to go there.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
Alright.
what is your next question, Chris?
Alright. Oh, this one's something I'm wondering. What was the hardest project you ever worked on?
Ooh, okay. Let me think. So in recent memory, like I said, it would probably be this one, because it was like technically very difficult. It was something I challenged myself to do just to see if I could figure out how this kind of like works. So technically, that one was a really difficult project. Let me actually go through my folders and see what other projects I have that were pretty difficult. Um, hmm. Okay,
Too many to choose from?
so yeah, I have quite a few like pretty complex designs. Okay, so I guess this one I think is probably a more difficult product for me because this was some people may have seen this. This is a like a biblically accurate uh Doomwing Angel Shadow. Very long name, I know, but this one I was pretty difficult for me to do because this is my one of my first attempts at designing enamel pins. The way you design enamel pins is difficult. It's different from like how you would design like this kind of piece because it is something it uses to call vector art, which is just solid colors. It's not painted at all, and it uses very strict, clean line work, which is not something that comes naturally to me. So this took quite a bit of time for me to develop and design because it just required a lot of precision that I just did not that's not come naturally to me. So this was a bit more difficult for me to design. And then I guess another one. Let me see. This one. Okay. So this one was also a really difficult piece for me to design. So the concept behind this is that this is a liquid glitter charm where essentially the inside of the charm will have glitter and oil inside it, and if you turn it around, the glitter will move around. And as you can tell, the illusion that's going on here is that like it's done like shadow and silver, and the inside has gold glitter, and if you flip it around, it will basically just turn super. This was really difficult for me to design because uh, first off, it uses some 3D space, so, like, if you tilt it, you can see the artwork the sh underneath, like, just this front area right here. Um, and so, like, basically, the underside of Sonic Channel Silver is actually, like, this big, and you have to figure out, like, how am I gonna draw this so that it is fills out all the space without like showing up underneath any of the other characters. And then the second part is just like this is a file formatting for this kind of design is also very difficult because it's just very technical. I won't go into details, but there's something called white ink that you have to consider, and that was very difficult to figure out because like if you use too much white ink, you'll start bleeding over to the rest of the design. If you use too little white ink, you'll start cutting off bits of the design. So it was just technically very difficult for me to complete, but it is complete. Finished it about a year ago or so now, and I know that quite a few people like the design. So yeah, there's that.
Okay.
Hey, shout out for the Triple S team too. I love it.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
I love all three of them.
Yeah.
Why do you choose one when you can go with all three of them?
Yeah. I do hope Silver gets to make a major appearance in the future Sonic game. I would love to see
Like he
him.
deserves his own game, honestly.
Yeah. Honestly, I would just love to see all three of them just work together again. They only ever appeared in Sonic 06 and never again.
The boy deserves more love.
Yeah.
Anyways, Kevin, what's your next question?
So what is one print and or piece of merchandise that you've always wanted to make but haven't gotten the opportunity to do so yet?
Oh wow. Okay. I actually really love to design more stationary items, so like journals and whatnot. I just haven't gone around to doing so because just around the logistics of like storing, just like it costs money to make. It takes up a lot of space. It's heavy to take with me to like events and whatnot. So I would love to be able to try making stationery someday. I just have not figured out the logistics around doing so just yet. But I definitely think that someday I will get around to designing journals and whatnot.
Okay. All right. So my next question is actually, how do you handle art block? Art block.
Okay, yeah. So I guess for me, I can usually identify what is causing art block for me.
Mhm.
It's usually because I've been working on a certain kind of art for way too long. Maybe I just had a string. Maybe I just had a string of like projects that use the exact same kind of style that took way too long that I just do not want to work on anymore. So for me, the easiest way to handle art block is just to pivot projects and just do something that's a lot completely different from what I was previously working on. So, for example, I was doing a lot of illustrations recently. Then I might just pivot to like doing doodles or to do a small comic using just like that's not painted at all. Just to like make something fresh, get something new. If I spend too long on the comic, for example, I might just like switch over to illustrations. So it really is for me. It's just like just because I just know like what causes burnout for me. It's just like jumping between different projects that I know will like keep me on my toes, be something fresh, uh, just to just to be able to like get some new ideas worked out and whatnot. Yeah. So I guess for it's definitely not advice that can be applied to everyone. But like if you could figure out like what's causing art block, it definitely helps like with getting past it and working past it.
Okay.
Like before I ask my next question, is it 10 minutes left that you have, Jasmine? Since I know you said 5 p.m.
Yeah,
PT.
I have about 10 more minutes, but if we have some questions from the audience, I can definitely go like maybe another 10 more minutes.
Okay, gotcha. So my next question is, what would be some words of advice you could give for those looking to start vending at conventions?
Yeah. So definitely start with your local conventions. Don't go straight for the major conventions, especially ones that you have to travel to. Those are expensive. To do it's expensive to go to them, expensive to make stuff for them. It's expensive to stay there, and it can involve a lot of logistics that if you aren't familiar with vending and like running a business, you might it might be a bit too overwhelming to start with, because like vending at conventions and whatnot, you are by definition running a small business. So you just be prepared for that kind of work. So definitely you want to start with your smaller local conventions. For example, like here I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so there's a small local San art mart at San Francisco that I regularly attend. It's a very good like beginner friendly event, because if you're in the Bay Area, the only travel cost you might incur might be like gas and parking, and then the only expense you're trying to make up is like the table fee. Uh, and because it's a 2-day event, it's pretty easy to be able to make up that fee easily. Um, and it's just like you definitely want to start with these smaller events just so you get a gist of like this is what vending is going to be like, and if this is something that you actually want to do going forward. It will give you a sense of like, oh, this is how much energy I have. This is how much energy I need for this kind of event. This is how much I should be bringing to these kinds of events. And these are like some things I should be prepared for, what kind of things I should be bringing, so on and so forth. Um, because like at the very root of it all, vending at a convention is basically you are running a small business, and you need to be prepared to like approach vending as a small business. It's totally valid to do this for fun. It's totally valid to do this for a hobby. I did this as a hobby for many years, but like it's just something that you want to be. But it's also like it's not a cheap hobby. This is an expensive hobby to do. So you want to be prepared for these kind of these kind of like what vending entails and whatnot. And then the second piece of advice I have is, like I said earlier, it's really easy to find information about what a convention is like or what vending is like because there's so many people who are willing to talk about their experiences at conventions and what they do to prepare for a convention. I know there are lots of artists who do vlogging now who talk about vlog their experiences. They post on TikTok and whatnot. So go find those resources to see like if you want to do vending and what you should prepare for when you vend at an artist alley. Let me think. Is there anything else I want to talk about when it comes to vending an artist alley?
I know one thing for sure.
Yeah.
I know one thing for sure, especially if you're trying to do like vending at like a convention in another state, you need a way to get all your merchandise and all your stuff there.
Yeah, definitely. It's like definitely as you become a bigger and bigger artist, or like you start doing if you choose to do this more professionally, it starts becoming a bit of a logistical nightmare to like figure out how you're gonna get things across the country because there's only so much stuff you can bring onto plane luggage before it gets too heavy. Both like to take on the plane and also like I'm not strong. I have weak arms. Carrying 50 pounds over 50 pounds of equipment and merchandise across the country is not easy for me. I do not have any meat on my arms. So it becomes a bit of a logistical nightmare that you do have to start considering and have to like think about. But like for most artists, this probably won't be a issue for a while because like most artists will probably stick to like vending within their state, vending somewhere close to them, and they could just get everywhere by car. But definitely for like the bigger artists, people who do this more professionally, that is something they have to consider when like traveling for conventions. And then yeah, I guess the other advice I had related to this pick local cons is just start small. There is no there is no downside to starting with small events or just starting with like a small merchandise catalog. Just figure out like where you stand, what you like making, what how much money you should expect to make, and then build off those experiences to eventually figure out like where you want to do what you want to do when it comes to tabling at conventions and whatnot.
All great words of advice. So it looks like we have time for one more question. So, Chris, would you like to ask your last question?
Yes, I do. All right. This one's a pretty good, interesting question. Do you have any new projects that are coming up for this year? What can you tell us about them?
Ooh, okay. So as people know, I am doing work for Sonic Expo. So definitely look forward to seeing like more stuff more art from Sonic Expo, specifically Sonic Expo Dallas. So there is that. I have a couple of other acrylic items I'm hoping to make this year. Not necessarily Sonic. My one of my favorite games right now. One of my favorite games of all time is The Great Ace Attorney. So I'm getting back. I'm getting back into that, and I'm definitely excited to make more merchandise with that. I do have a Okay, so I do have this one project. It's basically Sonic in San Francisco project that I've been like sitting on for quite a while and slowly like making things for. And so hopefully maybe this year might be the year I finally get that published and finally get the get that done. So hopefully I will finally get off my ass and actually do that. What other projects do I have off the top of my head?
Fingers crossed.
Um, yeah, honestly, just off the top of my head, those are what I have. Honestly, I make merch kind of on a whim, so I'll probably have more that I don't know this year because I just don't know that I'm gonna make them right now. But yeah, just off the top of my head, that's what I have.
Alrighty, so we are out of time. Is there any final words you'd like to say, Jasmine, before we wrap up the Q&A?
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here. Hope if any of y'all are going to conventions that I'm going to be at this year, hope to see you there. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks so much for coming by.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much, Jasmine, for
Mhm.
stopping by, and thank you, Chris, for helping me co-host.
No problem. It
And
was a lot of fun.
yep, indeed. And this Friday, it's the next Rebel Team with children's book adaptations starting at 6:30 p.m. So we'll see you all there. Bye, everyone.
Later, everyone.
Good night. Thank you for having me. Have a good night.